Evolution Hunter in a nutshell. Hunter will be the next evolution coming to Clash Royale. You can find him in the Diamond Pass, and I would appreciate any support from using code Abdod before making any purchases. It will be a 2-cycle evolution with identical stats to the regular Hunter. The gimmick he got is a net that will tie down troops caught in it. The net will recharge every 4 seconds and will also disappear every 4 seconds, meaning it will pin a target down indefinitely, unless you get rid of his stupid eyebrow face. This net acts similarly to regular attacks in a sense where slowing him down will slow down the reload speed of the net. Zapping him will also slow it down a tiny bit, but it's barely noticeable. Regular pushback won't slow down his net regeneration, even though sometimes they would slow down normal attacks, and that's because even if he wasn't targeting something, the net regenerates with its own timer and the pink circle below him appears when it's ready. Just like how slowing him down slows the net, raging him does increase the net regeneration speed, but it's a waste since he can stun lock units without buffs anyway. The way this ability works looks similar to Evo Goblin Cage, but it's closer to freeze as things remain targetable while inside it. It stops cards like Ram Rider and Goblin Giant from using their side attacks while being inside like the freeze does. The Evo Knight interaction is the exact same, as in if you capture him with his shield down, he will take full damage, but if you capture him with his shield up, it stays up. Besides stopping abilities, it can stop a prince. It also resets a sparky charge, which I feel like might be an unintended mechanic. It will also disable an Electro Giant reflection, which honestly really surprised me. Unlike freeze though, it counts as a projectile, meaning the monk will reflect it back when the hunter gets hunted. Alright, I'll see myself out. If you have a champion, they could either be captured early, which locks their ability like a freeze does, or they could be captured after you press the button, which saves the ability to be auto-activated after the net expires, but the problem is the ability cooldown won't be resetting. Clearly, from this message, this is intended. I think it's worth mentioning that the net will capture the closest target to the hunter without locking on them. This could either mean that you can distract their net with something like a miner, so your giant starts moving again, or that you can't assassinate the hunter using your miner. It really just depends on whether you are a glass half full or half empty guy. And in case you haven't noticed, the net will make him turn away, but he won't switch targets, so there is no saving your tower from damage. Getting into weird interactions, having 2 Evo Hunters will have them both using the net on one troop, effectively wasting one of them. And this isn't about them shooting at the same time, because even if one of them uses it first, the other one will still waste his net. Cloning a capture unit will give you a captured clone, which is exactly how it works with freeze and clone. Killing a unit that spawns smaller units won't move the net onto the death spawns, and if it doesn't look obvious enough, the nets do not target buildings. The exception to this is cannon card, because the building form will keep the net on it since it's treated as the same unit rather than a death spawn. Surprisingly, air units are not immune from being captured. Basically, the way this works is that air troops will essentially become ground troops when captured. They go back to normal once the net expires, meaning that killing the hunter can save your lava hound. Being on ground means that they are subject to all forms of ground troops, just like how regular ground troops are. Obviously, some cards are heavy like lava hound, which means they can't be pushed by anything except the log. The way to know which troops can be pushed back is by using a snowball or fireball on them, because those are very consistent. But knockback is far from the most interesting thing you can do with an air troop on the ground. Evolved Goblin Cage can kidnap a lava hound when it's on the ground, which is very helpful because the lava hound will stay there even if the net expires while it's inside. Fisherman works on them too, which allows for some crazy King Tower activations using lava pops. It's really hard to pull off, but I think it could be worth going for in some situations. Balloon is an easier activation with Fisherman due to its lower range and the death bomb. You almost need no practice to pull this one off. The rest of the air cards really don't do much for you, with this making them a ground card gimmick. Like, their HP is so low, they will probably die before you get to do stuff with them. There is, however, something I want you to watch out from, and it's putting the hunter right below an air card, as it ruins his ability. It's more like a mortar blind spot, because if you try to capture an air card with something below it, it will get pushed away, and this applies to troops being below them even when they are deployed after the net starts flying. Having an air and a ground card on the same tile will give priority to the troop that got played first. As you can see here, this is the same position. different order and different results. It may seem like an obscure interaction, but trust me, given that Hunter is typically played right below balloons, it's important to point out. It could save you from an entire balloon connection knowing that the Evo is better played slightly far away to utilize his net. Offensively, he is now more effective against heavier decks, as they can no longer drop a mini tank directly on him. They would have to drop multiple cards, which for a cycle deck might not be an issue, but for heavier decks it could be a big investment. He can also substitute for a Fisherman in a Royal Giant push, as he will easily permastun something like a P.E.K.K.A, since these decks typically don't use something like skeletons that could tank the nets. And that isn't really exclusive to Royal Giant decks, like even Hog Rider Hunter can work if you know they only have single targeting troops in hand with little elixir. It's just that the 2-cycle requirement will make him a worse choice in decks like Sparky Lightning that used to run Hunter, and a better choice in stuff like Royal Giant Cycle, which was already a great place for Hunter before this evolution. And if you're feeling extra spicy, you can tie them down for your Firecracker or Magic Archer, but I don't recommend this as it's risky. Defensively, if you protect him really well, he will be significantly more effective, as he is basically a walking freeze spell generator. And what's cool about him is that if your building is out of cycle, he can substitute for it by holding their win condition down. If you don't protect him, he will be slightly more effective given that the first net is basically almost guaranteed. The nice thing is he wins every single 1v1, so playing him into anything will either guarantee a positive trade or force out an expensive response to save their troop. The bad thing about him is that with the evolution, the net animation will make him even worse against swarm cards than he used to be. Like, imagine bro defending a graveyard and then he does this whole animation to tie down a skeleton that he can just one-shot anyway. The only case where he seems to be better is against Goblin Drill if you are actually garbage and misplace him, because his net can capture a goblin if the building tanked his shots. For king activations, just like regular Hunter, you can activate using Tornado and some tiny troop. It works with every tower troop regardless of whether he was evolved or not. Like, I thought it wouldn't work against Dagger Duchess because of the net animation, but he barely shoots in time. The evolution, however, allows for a Fisherman to get an activation against him because the net will make the Hunter survive long enough to get a second shot, when originally he would die after getting only one shot because of the Fisherman damage. It works easy on Chef because it has very low DPS compared to any other tower troop that will basically kill the Hunter before the second shot. There is some extremely hard timing to make it work with Princess, but it's very hard to pull off. You basically have to delay the Fisher so he gets captured before hitting the Hunter. And here is the new arena. I realized using the picture they provide shows more than recording only the screen I have. No new music again, which is really sad because I thought new music every season was gonna become a standard. I was thinking of how useful this would be against a real Lavaloon push, but in all honesty it feels like a meme because we have no cards that hit air only, so a ground lava hound will still technically tank for a balloon, my dudes.